Good morning, San Antonio. Hey there. Hi and howdy. It's your boy, JRG. Welcome to another episode of Geekdom Underground. Today, we have a very special guest, and we're going to introduce her here in just a second. First and foremost, before that, who are you, sir?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Philip Hernandez. I'm COO here at Geekdom, and I am super excited for today's episode of Geekdom Underground. That's right, there it is. God, we're hitting the air horns early this morning.
Yeah,
I dig it. So this morning we have Belinda Medellin from BMyVillage. We're going to be learning about her application, which is Teachers Teaching Teachers.
Teachers Coaching Teachers.
Coaching Teachers. Teachers Coaching Teachers. So we're going to get into that here in just a little bit. Also a pre-accelerator participant. So
yes. Before we jump into it, let me just say, last night was amazing.
Oh my!
So those of you out there that joined us in Legacy Park, thank you for showing up. I know there's a lot of people probably tuning in now that tuned in virtually. So thank you for watching. You probably saw these amazing pitches and you got to kind of meet these founders. But we're going to dive even deeper today with Belinda.
Yeah, because you've heard the pitches, the professional things. But today
we're just going to, get to know.
Peel the curtain back.
I love it.
We're going to learn a little bit more. So let's get after it. Belinda, if you would, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Hello. Hola. My name is Belinda Medellin, my nickname. And I was a teacher for over 14 years, and I was lucky enough to be at Cass Tech down the street that Geekdom definitely was a big part of. And I made the difficult decision to leave the classroom, and that was actually in January of 2020. So it was before COVID stuff. I wasn't one of those teachers that are like, I need to get out. So I taught at the beginning of COVID, and it was hard to leave, but I wanted to make a bigger impact in education. So I thought it was my time.
Yeah. And so 14 years, but Cass Tech hasn't been around that long. So where were you at before then?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So
you're taking it back.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So what's interesting is because I'm originally from Northwest Indiana, real close to Chicago. And I was kind of lost, in your 20s, you're like, what do I do? So I had a musical theater background, and I was like, I'm tired of going on auditions and not making things, or things weren't happening fast enough. Because, when you're 20s, you're like, I want everything now.
Yeah.
So I decided to join the military, the Navy, and I went in to be a musician. Stuff happened. I ended up being a photographer. I was like, they wanted to make me a radio man. I was like, no, I need something creative. And they put me there, which turned out to be a blessing because when I got out of the military, I became a mom, and I was working in Indianapolis at AT&T, and I was trying to move up the corporate ladder. It just wasn't me. My family moved down to San Antonio because my dad was originally from Laredo, and he's like, when I retired, I got to go back to my Texas. And, and he was like, Laredo's too hot. So they were here. And I was like, okay, I don't want to go to Texas. It's too freaking hot. But I'm a single mom. I need help. And came down here, and my dad was like, they're hiring teachers. And I'm like, So I went the alternative route, trying to get a theater job. And this is so bad, but you kind of have to wait till there's only one theater teacher, so you have to wait till they die or they retire. So I'm like, what do I do?
Highly competitive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I went back to school, got my master's in technology, and then Kerrville, Tybee High School called me. It was Kerrville and Uvalde called me. And I was like, oh, shucks. I don't know anything about both of them, but I knew Uvalde was going more south, so I know it was going to be hotter. So my first teaching gig was that's like music talk in Kerrville, and I taught multimedia, and I was there for 2 years. I got new teacher of the year there, so I was doing really well. I was like, okay, this is my jam. And then I wanted to be closer to my family in San Antonio. I worked at Brandeis High School, where I was finally in theater. So
right on.
So I was tech theater. We went to UIL State. And this was crazy. I was like, Texas makes everything a competition. I'm like, in Chicago, you're acting because you want to act. And here it's like, we want to see who's the best, So, and what's funny was I liked it, but it's like I'd rather be on the stage rather than teaching it. So I went back to teaching technology, and I got those jobs because I learned photography in the military, and they taught us, Photoshop and all that stuff. So I kind of lied when I got my first job. I was like, yeah, I know Adobe Illustrator, but I learned it real quick. But so that's kind of how the tie-in with the military. And from there, I went to work at Churchill. So I became like the 2-year teacher because I get really, my family says I have ADD, but I just think I'm like, I like to be adventurous. So it's like, let me try this.
Like what's next? What's
exactly.
next? Yeah.
So Churchill was great. And then I had an opportunity to teach at a school in Florida. I was about to go, but the funding went through, or it fell through. And then I was like, oh, shucks, I don't have a job. And I ended up at Holmes High School. And I was actually teaching Avid and speech there. And I started their speech and debate program. I revived it because it had gone away. And I spent 4 years there. That was the longest school that I was at.
Wow.
And I wanted to leave teaching. I never felt like, what do I do next? And my dad, once again, who's no longer with us, but he was like, hey, San Antonio has master teachers. And I'm like, Dad, that's just for English and math teachers, And this new school was coming up and they needed a digital media teacher. And it was cast. And I was reading all about it, how they wanted to partner with the tech district and they wanted to change how school was. And that's why I was like, okay, I was there. And it was 3 years and it was the pinnacle of my teaching. So
wow,
that's so cool.
That's the 14 years.
Yeah. What a journey. And so was it always high school students?
Yeah. When I was younger, I substitute taught and I had kindergarten one day and I had to take like the milk count.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, who wants white milk? They all raise their hand. I'm like, write it down. And then they're like, I said, who wants chocolate milk? They all raise their hand. And I was like, I can't deal with
that. Was it.
Yeah.
That was the moment.
I was like,
it was the breaking point.
In middle school, no, those teachers deserve like a raise. Kindergartner teachers and middle school teachers.
Yeah.
Like, but high school, I'm like, I can only make them cry a little bit. So
and so when you came here, like teaching was something that you saw as like an opportunity that you kind of felt like you could do and you could apply your skills to.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any like aspirations to become a teacher? You had mentioned that you substituted.
Yeah.
Is that something that you had thought about? Like maybe I could go down that route, but didn't?
So when I got into college, I was one of those athletes. I wasn't a good student. I was like a CD student, more C's because to play sports in Indiana, all you need is C's.
Just above. Right?
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
I did fail Spanish though, but that was just because I had an attitude when I was younger. So, but I received a scholarship to play softball, and I was playing for a school in Illinois. And like so many athletes, it was a 2-year college, and Waco, Baylor University was looking at me and a school Northeastern in Illinois. Now, this was the 90s. So I didn't know anything about Texas. And I just heard Baylor was in Waco. And on TV, I was like, oh no, that's where all the Branch Davidian stuff is. I don't want to go there. And now I'm here. I'm like, dang it. I should have really looked into that. But I ended up breaking my ankle twice. So I kind of got redshirted and I couldn't play anymore. And I was like, what do I do now? So when I was in school, I was doing the musical theater stuff, and a Catholic nun in Gary, Indiana, reached out to me and some of my friends, and she said, I want to create a performing arts programs for these inner city youth. Their school, it was St. Mark's, they weren't teaching anymore because a lot of Catholic schools were losing funding, not enough enrollment. And so we turned it into a performing arts school. I started off with teaching musical theater classes to any of the kids that wanted to come. Then I started teaching like salsa dancing, and I think that's when I got the bug, and I was like, I really like this stuff. It was mostly the growth because I was in that program for about 2 years, and I saw kids who were super shy or kids who were like because where I grew up, there were a lot of gangs and stuff, and they were, you know, right in the middle of the clutches of the gangs, or, you know, do I go the right path? And I was like, oh my gosh, this kid loves salsa dancing, and he's the man because he's like, oh, I'm the only one of the few guys in the class. All the girls want to dance with me. So that felt good to see somebody just change the direction
Yeah.
of their mentality in their life, maybe. So,
Wow. That's a big impact.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's so cool to hear you say that, like, you know, even though it was a difficult decision to leave teaching,
yeah,
you did that. The draw was the impact. And you identified early in your career that you're making this incredible impact on these students already. So I want to talk about, you had mentioned that when you were in Kerrville,
hmm,
you got new teacher of the year.
yes.
So that's awesome. I mean, it sounds awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, what does it take?
Yeah, well, it just takes being crazy.
Yeah.
So, um, I went in with different ideas, and I'll be honest, I didn't know what I was doing as far as well, a lot of stuff with kids, but they gave me a chance, and um I knew how I like to learn, and I wanted things to be different. I hated quizzes, I hated tests, and I wanted kids to do hands-on projects, but not just in the classroom. I wanted them to work with other people and get ideas. So I did a project where I got some students from Shiner University, where they were actors in the theater program, and they came in pretending like they were the interviewers for jobs, so multimedia jobs. And the kids had to dress up, and I had them in a separate room, and you know, it was pretend, but since they didn't know these people, they took it pretty serious.
Yeah.
We partnered with an elementary school, and the second graders created a story, and then they got with one of my students, multimedia, and we designed their books. So
That's so cool.
That's so cool.
finding
Yeah.
funding for that's always hard. That's I'm like,
Yeah.
entrepreneurship is no, it's not different, because as a teacher, they're like, okay, here's $100 for 500 kids for the whole year, make it work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You know, to get those kind of accolades,
mhm.
you have to be really extra. Like you have to do a lot on top of the things that your typical obligations at work.
Yeah.
Why do you do that?
I think because I'm the middle kid, so I always had to be extra to get attention. No, but I'm like, I do get bored really easily.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I'm an adult and I get bored, I know kids are gonna get
Yeah.
bored. But it's just something that pops in my brain. Like, you know, Cass Tech was here giving the tour, and there
Yeah.
was just one kid who stood out. And when I heard his idea through John, I was like, okay, I want to ask that kid that his name, and then I'm gonna try to connect out. There's just something, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, if there's something about the kid, if there's something about the school, then I feel like I have to. It's my duty as a person in this society.
Yeah.
It's just a feeling.
That's so cool. I kind of feel the same way. You know, it's like if I can impact a younger mind and like inspire, because kind of like you were saying earlier, school is, you know, school,
Yeah.
you know, and I wish I would have had someone that kind of like encouraged me and said like, hey, that's a cool idea. Like you can make it a reality. Like it doesn't have to be impossible or scary.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel that same thing.
Yeah. And so for everybody watching and listening in, I got to see Belinda in action right now. So the reason why we were a little bit late is
Sorry.
because,
It's okay.
you know, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Like the reason why we're a little bit late is because last night you got a really late request that the Cass Tech students wanted to come by and tour our facility.
Mhm.
And so I saw in action you being a little bit extra, knowing you have a podcast this morning. You still accommodated and had them all come in and show them around. That was really awesome. Thank you for
thank you for that. That's
bringing them in.
stuff me and Philip love to do.
Yeah. Why do you think it's important for them to see stuff like this?
So that they don't feel like you guys did, that, oh, school is just school, and that they see a community is really trying to change things. Like everyone who was involved in Cass Tech, If you go to the school, yes, it's nice, it's pretty, you got the bells and whistles, but it's about more than that. And that's why I'm like, okay, I want these kids to see that if you have an idea or just something you want to do, there's people out there for you. And don't ever feel like you're just a kid and you can't make anything happen. And that's
yeah. Let's talk about Cast Tech a little bit.
Okay.
So you went to join Cast Tech. That was, you said 2017?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was their inaugural class, right? The first time. So can you tell me what you did at Cast Tech?
Okay. I was hired as a master teacher to teach multimedia. And
can you, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but real quick, the master teacher, that's the second time I've heard you say that. Can you elaborate on what that is?
So a master teacher, well, in order to get that position, which it was the hardest teaching job I ever applied for, the interview, which I loved. I love challenges. And we had to submit a video of our teaching style. And I went extra. So I still have my video because I laugh. Like I talk about the old timey ways of teaching. And I'm like a 1950s video. And I'm like, hi, I'm Belinda Medellin. And this is my class. And then I showed him what the class of 2017 should be. And I had all my kids, like it was color and loud and crazy. And then we had to submit project-based lesson plans, 2 of them. And then the interview, when I came in, it was a 8-person interview.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I got that. I mean, I was sweating so much, but some like Gene Russell, who is a big part of Cast, I want to say Brett Piat was there. I can't remember, but there were people from the tech community. There were representatives from Cast, from SAISD, the principal, and that was one of the requirements for master teachers. It's
wow.
Like, you know, they really sift you out. And then it's more work, but it's kind of like teachers who they figured out something they're really good at, and it's more paid, but it was more work. So
yeah. Which you're not afraid of.
So
I mean, you were doing more work without the extra pay and resources to get
and
that
that's
impact.
most teachers.
Yeah.
Like, they just do it.
Yeah. I love your story, and I love that you're screaming from the rooftops that this is a need. You know, because I shared with you personally, like, you know, when I grew up, my mom was a teacher, and some of my earliest memories being younger are like on a Saturday in her classroom cutting things for the bulletin board. She shouldn't have to do that. You know what I mean? But she does if she wants that kind of experience. And so I've seen that struggle from a very personal side. And so, so I love to hear you share that story. So master teacher, intense process, highly competitive, a lot of extra work.
Yes.
But you made it through.
Yes.
So you become master teacher, and then you go over to Cast Tech. Or was that part of getting
that was part of getting into Cast Tech?
So getting into Cast Tech. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at Cast Tech you created a UX like path.
Yes.
Is that right?
And that was all because of the kids. I was teaching digital arts and animation, and you know, we wanted to create this pipeline of students to go into the tech district, and we were doing a vision board project with Adobe Photoshop, and I was trying to teach them how to use Glassdoor.com, Salary.com to really research what they want to do, whether it's college or career or whatever. And Jason Salazar, so I think the Geekdom sphere knows Jason, very precocious young man, very well spoken. We knew he was going to do a lot of great things, but I was showing them what a graphic designer makes, and it was saying the median was $34,000 in San Antonio. And then Jason was like, "How come that UX designer makes $64,000?" And I was like, "I don't know what UX design is." So this was right before holiday break. I looked into it, and I'm like, this is what we should be teaching. So I'm looking for other schools that are teaching this, and all I'm finding is it's at the collegiate level. So during Christmas, I write a proposal to my principal, and I was like, hey, here's the why. Here's how we could do it. She was like, go ahead. Dr. Alcala was like by far the best principal I've ever worked for. And
shout out.
She believed in my crazy ideas. So
that's amazing.
She helped helped me go forward. I talked to Amir Samandi. It was his 3rd day on the job.
Hey,
and,
shout out.
And I was like, can we do this? He's like, let me make some phone calls. So we made a great team, connected me with UX designers at USAA. We formed a board of UX designers. Claire Remmert, who was at Jungle Disc, got on our board. And then through a student, I met Dr. Laura Faulkner, the head of UX research at Rackspace. So I know CAST had a board members from all the tech companies and HEB and everywhere. So I was like, I need a board to guide me. So we had 6 people, Jeremy Carney and Stephen Gonzalez from USAA. And
heavy hitters.
Wow.
I was like, I felt imposter syndrome, but within the first hour working them, they made me feel so comfortable. I was like, UX people are my people. And like, so cool. And
they need it too. They need the experienced talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
They need that output to come out. And I mean, like, I don't know how it was for you in high school, but for me, like, there wasn't a lot of that stuff that was introduced. Like when you teach this stuff to these students, graphic design, UX design, is it new to them, or is it something that they've heard of, or how do they receive it?
Of course, when I started teaching 2007, it was kind of new, but then most students are like, oh yeah, I know Adobe Photoshop. So I always had to change how I taught every year. And I'm like, but let's see what we can do with it. And then, delve deeper.
Yeah.
So.
And maybe they don't know that, like, you may know what Photoshop is. You know that you can make money with Photoshop. Like,
oh yeah. And they just want to like learn how to take off their head and put it on somebody else's body. So
that's how it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
We both dabble in Photoshop and we're still removing heads.
Bodies,
you know, like
still making goofy like little things.
It's fun. I like making the eyes bulge. So
but that's so cool how that can be the entryway for a young person to get into something like that's a real career path that will pay really well. Like it starts off goofy, and this is like, I'm gonna pull a prank on my friend and like Photoshop this thing, or make like for me, I'm big into music. I'm going to make like an album art, like just to play around. And then that turns into like the fundamentals of design, and then how that goes into like the experience. And it's super cool. Especially starting at such a young age, where like just getting the interest with those fun things.
Yeah. My family has learned not to ask me for Photoshop. Well, I mean, I will do it, but like my mom, she had a photo taken of her in front of her school, and she's teachers are real particular about, you can't have kids in the photos, you know what I mean? And there weren't any, but there was photos of kids in the background. So she said, she was like, Mijo, can you remove these photos of the kids in the background?
Oh no.
And so I just put my head on all the photos.
Yes.
And so, but that's
how much trouble were you in?
Well, not too much, because I did have the actual the other one ready to go. But it's all fun and games. But it's funny because like that's the thing, is like if you start it out and it's just something fun and it's a pastime, then you can turn it into a career. And the thing about getting a career in the tech field is that you have to constantly be learning. So you kind of have to enjoy doing it on your off time and advancing on your off time to stay ahead.
Oh yeah.
So well, that's awesome to hear about that at Cast Tech. And I'm assuming the program went well.
Yes, it took about 2 years, but we were the first high school to have UX design. The state of Texas passed the standards.
Thank you, studio audience. Thank y'all. It's all Belinda.
And at first I thought it was nationwide, but then I did some consulting with a company in London called Digital Influx. And shout out to them, but they had the same idea, but they wanted to teach UX to 9th to 12 or 9-year-olds all the way to 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I found out that we were the only ones who created it globally. So I helped them by using the standards we wrote together. And I've had teachers from everywhere reaching out. And I did a podcast on UX of Ed Tech because they were talking about helping teachers if they want to make that change. It's just finding the motivated teachers who want to get out of that old mindset and who are willing to keep learning.
Wow.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. A global a global award-winning, trailblazing teacher in the house. That's how we could have started it off. That's how we could have started off the podcast.
No, but it's all because of the kids. They ask questions.
Yeah.
And if you're an adult, listen to the kids sometimes, because sometimes kids could be, dopey. So I was a kid. So.
But you're absolutely right. It's about listening to those kids. Like, the kids that you had in here, I was only able to see them for a short time, but I could tell how engaged they were. And I think it's because of the way that the teachers that were with them listened to them.
Oh my gosh. Shout out. Cass Tech has the most amazing Spanish teachers, and they teach a different way. It's called comprehensible input. And oh my gosh. And they love doing things like this. You heard the Spanish teacher was teaching crochet, and it's like you can reach kids in so many different ways.
I thought
you
that
have
was
to listen to them.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Like the kid was crocheting and he's like, why can't I stop doing this? And I was like, that's funny. No, it's like he learned it and he's super interested in just making things. And then you put that together with like, well, that's like, have you heard of maker spaces and how 3D printing? And oh yeah, I like that stuff. It's just super cool to see.
You guys would have made amazing teachers. So you are amazing teachers, though, just in a different way.
Thank you for that.
I just I'm the hype man. That's all.
But it is cool to see that, like, to give him that space and grace to just, if you want to walk around crocheting, like there's no harm in that. And he is learning and picking things up. So that was awesome. Thank you for bringing them by.
Oh my gosh.
And
thank you, Megan Whalen, and thank you, John Crutlow. So
hey, shout out
to both of them.
Yeah. So, and we're always open to do that stuff too.
Yeah.
So, me and Philip can go for, like, we can talk about geekdom and how cool it is to be here for hours.
Or superheroes or crocheting. Startups. We can just kick it.
Yeah.
So Cass Tech, if you want us to come over and talk about geekdom or entrepreneurship, we'd love it.
Or do a live podcast. Hey.
Oh, from Cass Tech.
Live from Cass Tech in downtown.
I hear it already. I love it.
Awesome.
I love it already. So, inaugural class of Cass Tech.
Mm-hmm.
They just graduated.
Yes.
Right. So how was that?
So I went to graduation, and I was lucky because I have a little cousin, and his mom, my cousin, moved from Laredo to here so he can go to the school. So I got to go to their graduation, and I'm crying, and I wanted to go say.
Was he part of the first class?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a big move for her and her son, and he just blossomed. But seeing all the kids, and
jeez,
I'm okay with crying, but it takes a lot for me to tear up. And I was just a hot man. I mean, it was hot, but I'm like crying.
I know. I'm about to just ugly cry right now, because that's so many angles. Like, your program went through, you're at the inaugural class watching these students who are going through the first time, and then you have the family angle, like all these I mean, it's just so cool that, like, in your career, just hearing your story, you've made an impact from the very beginning in Kerrville, with going extra and showing these kids. You don't know how that impacted them in their adult life, but then, also being part of Cass Tech and introducing a new program and watching the first students walk across that stage.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Like, that is really awesome stuff.
That was crazy. Oh my God, you made me tear up. So.
I know. Well, that's really awesome. Super inspiring. So now that we know all of that,
okay,
it helps me understand a little bit about the passion behind BMyVillage. So let's talk about BMyVillage. Okay. Can you tell us? Why don't you give the audience a little bit about what is BMyVillage?
The whole lowdown. So, BMyVillage is a one-to-one virtual coaching platform for motivated teachers by highly successful teachers. And it came about when I left teaching. I left for a company, an ed tech company, and I got furloughed. I started in July of 2020, got furloughed in September because of COVID, which I understand. Yeah. But then a week later, that's when Digital Influx reached out to me. I was so blessed, and they were like, do you want to do some consulting? And I started meeting teachers from all over the world. And I met, I got to talk with the Prime Minister of Education in Japan, and found out that their secondary teachers are having a hard time with that social emotional learning. The little kids do really well, because they're taught, they don't have janitors at their school. The kids are taught to pick up after themselves. But then once they get into the higher grades, it's very competitive. There's a high suicide rate. And I didn't know that. And then in the Caribbean, I found out the teachers, some of them have to pay for their own training. They don't get anything from the school. I talked to UK teachers and they're like, yeah, everything's just a mess. And that's when it clicked to me. I think I could connect these teachers where they want to do something with a teacher that already figured out that secret sauce. And some teachers disagree with me, but it's kind of those teachers that are recognized, either the teachers of the year or there are universities that recognize them because they're movers and shakers in education. So I was lucky to get Region 20 Secondary Teacher of the Year for 2020. And when I got that, a lot of people started reaching out to me email, and I didn't have enough time, but I wanted to help everyone. So that's when I thought, if I could find teachers of the year, recognized teachers, and match them up with maybe a teacher in Japan or something, if they have a question on anything to do with teaching, then I want to help. And that's the idea. It was in my head after the startup weekend in December that I did here.
Virtual.
Yes.
I remember.
Virtual.
Yeah, we played Jackbox.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
I was just going to say, I remember you like were the only one.
I was like, you know what? I love getting older because I'm like, I don't care anymore. I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
So
that was so fun because we didn't know what we were doing. Everything went virtual, and then we were like, "Come kick it with us," and you did.
It was like, yay!
Yeah, it was sweet. But
oh my gosh, yeah, I love Jackbox, and I had a party with my family, and I was like, "Let's play this," and they were all cracking up.
That's awesome. So anyway, so startup weekend in December,
yes. And the idea came to it started developing more, and I saw the possibility.
Wow.
And then, yeah, you guys reached out and was like, hey, I want to try for this pre-accelerator. I was like, should I? And I think I did the video from my car, and I was like, why not? You know?
Yeah.
What do I have to lose?
That's right. What do you have to lose?
If that's what I preach to my students, then I need to practice it as well.
Yeah, that's very true.
Afraid. So.
And so you had said that like you seek out this coaching from teachers of the year or other award-winning teachers. You mentioned that you got new teacher of the year. You've also been a recipient of secondary teacher of the year.
Yeah, that was 2020. That was crazy. Like I wasn't expecting that, but I know it came from the UX program.
Oh, okay.
And stuff. So I was first SAISD, San Antonio, gave me the award, and then Region 20 actually came into my classroom, surprised the heck out of me. My avid students were with me, and I think that was a few months after my dad passed. So it just all hit, and I was like, it was because of my dad, and oh my gosh, I see it right now.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, I need a moment.
No, that's okay. What an impact. Yeah.
But it was like my dad, who loved Texas so much, and I was hearing his Texas, and sometimes you got to listen to your parents.
Sometimes you do. Yeah. Yeah. Our first teachers.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
There it is.
So that's, wow. Well, that's awesome. What an impact.
Yeah.
So what is a secondary teacher?
So that's middle school and high school.
Middle school and up. Okay.
Right, yeah.
So the reason why you seek out these teachers to become coaches is because you know what it takes to get that master teacher level, to get that teacher of the year,
right?
Kind of an award and accolade.
Yeah.
What is it, do you think, that they have that new teachers need?
Like I heard this, I think I heard you guys talk about it, and then I was like, oh, it makes sense in the teaching world. They figured out that special sauce.
Yeah.
And I will admit, like, probably why I can't do little kids, because I'm not a very huggy, I'm like, I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm like side hug with the kids, a fist bump, know. But I was always a little tougher of a teacher, but I knew ideas, UX design, pushing students, that's what I'm good at. So I would not coach on, social emotional learning. I would be like, how to get ideas out of your students, believe in them, So it's like every teacher has something. And I will say some teachers, they disagree with the teacher of the year stipulation or the awarded, because sometimes it's like a popularity contest because teachers vote on who should be the teacher of the year.
Mm.
Oh,
But
gotcha.
so that's mainly like at schools. So sometimes it's like that. I get that. But then what I noticed is at the higher level, there's you have to fill out all this paperwork on the why, and there's people that read through things. I was very honored to be on the committee for the 21, or it's 20, I was 2019, 20, one of the years. And I had to read through all of these things that these teachers were doing. And it's like, wow, one teacher shined in this way. Another teacher was amazing at this. So it's like, yeah, there are some teachers who can do a lot of great things, but like, I'm sure your mom had that, one or two things where she was like, bam,
Yeah, for sure. And she was preschool and a
Oh my
4-year-old
gosh.
in kindergarten and
Oh
first
my-
grade.
Poor thing.
She was all over the place. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There is, I can't put my finger on it either, on what it is, that special sauce. But I think it comes down to that impact
Mhm.
and like breaking that
Yes.
barrier and getting that, like what you said, something that you did had that one boy in the salsa class and like engaged, and who knows what that is. Maybe you can't even point that
Yeah.
out, but something happened there.
Yeah, it's that spark. And that's why, like, one of our coaches is in Alamo Heights ISD, Lisa Berry, and she went in front of Texas legislature to try to get a bill passed so that genocide, Holocaust, and tolerance could be taught at all grade levels.
Wow.
And I mean, she's an amazing person. I haven't been able to meet all of my coaches in person, but I did meet her, and it's like, that's the special sauce.
Mhm.
How many teachers are willing to deal with the headache to go in front of, to get into the policies and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Sure.
Like Megan Whalen, the Spanish teacher. So she was teacher of the year, cast, and she has worked with Diego Bernal, and she's part of Texas Fellowship. So it's figured out that secret sauce, and she helps with the teachers unions here. So
Super involved.
yeah. So it's like there are many teachers that are fabulous, and I know they're not getting the accolades that they receive, but that's what I want to do, is like try to find them. So that's the fun part of this company is I get to research, not stalk. I'm researching
Yeah.
people online, and
Mhm.
I'm trying to snuff out the really strong ones.
Yeah. It sounds like your father was a big influence on your career and driving you to keep on doing these things. Did you have a mentor? Did you have a teacher of the year or a coach or something that helped guide you along?
So in my elevator pitch, I always say, we know it takes a village to raise a child, but what does it take to raise up and support a teacher? It takes BMyVillage. And I love Hillary when she said that, because I had that village. I'm so fortunate. I have a great family. I was the one that always got in trouble because I was the middle one. He named me Billy because he was like, she's going to be a tomboy. And I was like, yeah. But I was lucky because my dad moved from Laredo to Northwest Indiana to work in the steel mills. And that's hard to do. That's your home. He loved it. He felt very comfortable there because, let's be honest, outside of Laredo in the 60s, being a brown person was not well perceived in the South. So he was taking a gamble going up north. And, he got a high school diploma, and he made it work in the steel mills. My mom was great too. Her dad came from Puerto Rico to go and do that. So I had this steel community that everybody's parents were working at the steel mill, and they know they came from other places because they wanted something better for their kids. And I was living in Gary, Indiana. I don't know if you guys know about Gary, Indiana. It was the murder capital in the 90s. So it was not safe. When it was starting to get bad, my parents were like, let's move out. We went to the largest town in Indiana called Maryville. And here's a fun fact. Popovich is from Maryville, Indiana.
Hey,
So
he might be listening in. Is he in the chat?
Yeah, I think he is. Shout out.
But he went to my high school for a little bit. My high school has pictures of him. He went back.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so that town really shaped me. I played softball. I was one of the few brown people that played softball, but I never really felt that. And when I went to high school, I was starting to get into trouble, into the gangs that were coming from Chicago into Indiana. And it was my assistant principal who had 2 football players like escort me to each class, which was so hard as a young girl, having 2 football players escort me to class all the time. But he wanted to make sure I was safe, trying to get away from the kids that were trying to get me to go further into that life. And my softball coach, who I found out just passed away
Oh no.
2 years ago, but he was phenomenal. He was tough on me. I was always late.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, here comes Medellin again." And he benched me for some games, and I was so mad, but I was like, "Thank you for that." But it was him believing in me. He brought me up. I was a sophomore, and he came to a game, and the next day I was in varsity. And
Wow.
that was hard. My mom was great. My mom's very like, "You could do it. She's tough." And I was crying. I was like, "The girls don't like me." And she was like, "Who cares about them?" So
Yeah.
it's like I had the best life growing up, and
The support system.
yeah, and I have an older sister and a younger brother, and they're great because to me, they keep me humble. They're like, "You're stupid, Billy,
Yeah.
like, you can't do anything right." I'm
Don't
like,
you love family?
oh yeah. I was like, it keeps me humble. I was like, okay, so
Yeah.
but
Wow. It's interesting to hear that, like, the people who inspired you, the people who guided you. I feel like the pattern that we're seeing here, that I'm picking up on, is that every single one of those teachers had different disciplines and taught different things.
yes.
But the similarity between all of them is that they believed in you. And not only did they believe in you, but you felt that they believed in you. You understood that.
Oh yeah. And like I said, I didn't really realize I was always proud of my culture.
Yeah.
And where I was at, there were a lot of mixture of cultures, which was great. And I never felt like racism towards me or anything like that, but it was great. And like I talked about my coach, but I had a music teacher named Mrs. Reinhardt and her husband and in the high school, and they were just, they didn't see color or anything like that. They just saw, do you have a little bit of talent, and do you have that drive to try?
Yeah.
And yeah, those are the people that I gravitated towards. And they were usually mean. Like Mrs. Reinhardt wasn't all give me a hug or anything.
Yeah.
She was tough on me. So,
Yeah.
so I'm realizing that now.
But that's kind of what you needed at the time. You don't always need sunshine and rainbows and hugs, and you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you need a little bit of tough love, because otherwise you get hit in the face with something and it's like, why didn't anybody tell me about this? Why didn't anybody warn me?
Oh yeah.
And so, wow, that's awesome. And I mean, it could be that tough love that kept you persistent and fighting for things, and realizing that, like, these kids don't have this program. This program needs to exist. So whatever barriers are in my way, I was gonna move those things.
Exactly. And I think that's why I was a tough teacher. And
Yeah.
I think the worst story that I have is sometimes I would just ask kids to come outside, and the kid, you know how kids are, they're like, "Ooh, you're in trouble."
Yeah.
And so I had one kid come out, he was all, playing all hard. And I'm like, what can I do to help? What's going on? Why? I was just talking to him like that. And he's like, and I'm like, I really care about you. And then tears come down. And then at that point, somebody from Cass Tech, one of our leadership, was walking by, and then the leadership calls me later on into their office. You have to stop making kids cry. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I was like, this was a good thing. He was just coming. So
yeah,
I mean, sometimes being tough,
yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah, but I mean, like, sometimes you have to lean into that to really make that impact. Because again, you don't know how that impacted that student.
Exactly.
Like maybe he needed to hear that. Maybe he needed to understand that, like, this tough love is tough love, and it's care.
He was great. He became one of my favorite students. So
man, that's awesome.
It's a great story.
Yeah. Have you seen success with BMyVillage? Have you seen, like, a teacher who needs coaching and then matched with a coach and then it work?
So we just launched 3 weeks ago. So we have like 30 coaches in place. We had 15 packages already purchased, and we had our first coaching session last week.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
How'd it go?
This is so bad, but they found out about our product through their therapist.
Oh.
So I was like, okay, I need to go to therapists and bars because that's where teachers are going to be.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So from the coach, I got really good feedback. And from the client, I got really good feedback. And the client made a follow-up session already scheduled that.
So are you having any difficulty finding coaches? I mean, 30 coaches before you even start. That sounds like a lot.
So no, that's the fun part because I just sent out a cold email. I was like, I started with Dear Fellow Teacher of the Year. So I'm like, okay, maybe they'll open it.
Yeah.
So it's all about the marketing. And then I used Loom to create a quick video, introduce myself, and just saying, hey, you want to take a chance? And then I had like a follow-up Q&A. So I think because of teaching and having to create the UX program and having to convince people this is why we need it, I had that background already. And I did reach out to over 500 teachers and I got 30 coaches. So I'm hoping as we grow, I'm not gonna give up. So.
Yeah, people are gonna hear about it and like, oh, that's what that was.
Yeah,
okay. There's something new. Everyone's always like, I don't know. So
and
shout out to those 30 though.
Yeah, they're
so
phenomenal.
You didn't know them?
Nope, I just talked to them and had virtual meetings. My founding member, Missy, helped me on there too. She's our client and coach care specialist, so she's all sunshine and she's like, so I'm like, I'll let her do that. But it's like, why not? So we kind of launched it with the end of the school year.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, shucks, that wasn't really that smart. But school is going to be starting to pick up at the end of July. All the teachers go back to training and coaching. So,
yeah.
What is I'm curious to know like what a session looks like. Like if you can disclose that. Is it like, hey, we'll leave it up to the coaches to ask questions that they feel like are the right questions to ask? Or do y'all have like a structure that you give to everybody? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, no. So the reason I picked these teachers at such a high level, because I wanted to be teachers in the classroom coaching, because only they know from year to year how much it changes.
Yeah.
They know how to teach already. We know we have to start with the objective, what's the goal we want to get to at the end. So my whole thought was, you don't have to prepare for this job. You just go in and you give your session and do it like you're teaching a class. Yeah. If a coach needs a little help, I actually appreciated the design thinking model from the UX designers. And it was like a pretty package. I'm like, I already do all that stuff in teaching. All teachers do it. This is just a unique way to look at it from the professional side. I want to say civilian, but that's
yeah.
And so I have that there for teachers if they want to use that. But most teachers, we start with SMART goals.
Yeah.
So they already know their stuff. When a client goes on, they answer a few questions. So that's how we match. So the coach already knows, okay, this person is here for mentoring or they're here for empowerment or professional development.
Wow.
And we use Calendly to schedule the sessions. So there's a question on there, is there anything you like for me to know before the session? So that's all it is. And then the teachers know, the coaches, they're like, okay, I know that right questions to ask and how to get to that goal.
Man, that's so cool. I can't wait to see how it turns out. I mean, hopefully the teachers being coached will then turn into coaches later.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And give back. And wow, that's super inspiring because I mean, the teachers who are seeking out that coaching, they're already being extra. They're already, they want that stuff.
And that's why I say motivated teachers. Because unfortunately, the reality is there are some teachers I meet, they're like, oh, I've been teaching 14 years. I don't need this. And I'm like, no, you do need this. It's not just for new teachers. It's for teachers at any stage of their career.
Yeah.
My mentee at CAST, she was a brand new teacher. And she actually taught me how to do Twitter. And I learned so much more from her because I listened to her. And like education could be so much better if teachers just, tried a little bit more to listen to each other.
Sure. It takes that awareness and humility though.
Yes.
I mean, here's somebody who, is awarded multiple awards. This teacher is your mentee. but still you have that, you're able to be humble and set your ego aside and say, wow, there's a lot I can learn from you. That's really awesome. So and I know I've seen your pitch numerous times and I love it. So first off, for anybody who hasn't seen her pitch,
meet the teachers, meet the teachers.
Go
good.
Check out our Crowdcast and look at the presentation last night and see the pitch, because she does sing. I've never seen that in a pitch ever, and it's awesome. But another part of your pitch that you talk about is how parents learned a lot about the struggles of the classroom when kids were doing virtual learning.
Oh yeah.
And I'm in that boat. I've learned a lot. What is it that is there anything that you can think of that parents have no idea that this happens in the classroom?
So, okay, this might be 50-50. There are some parents who know what they have. Like, my daughter's 21. I knew what I had. I was like, she's a teacher's kid, but she's only going to do so much, you know.
Yeah.
But then there are the delusional parents that are like, my kid, they can do that thing or what you said. And, you know, it's just, parents don't realize that teachers are expected to give personalized learning to each individual student. So that takes time. It takes for us to really get to know the students. And there might be a rocky path. Like I said, the student that cried, you know, he was like pulling D's and F's in the beginning. Not that I'm saying, you know, a letter grade really defines your learning, but towards the end, it took me about 6 or 7 months to really be able to give him the personalized learning that he needs. Because I realized, I was like, I think he's a little bit dyslexic.
Yeah.
So we started that kind of stuff, but the parents don't realize that that's a journey that might take 1 or 2 years sometimes.
Yeah. So maybe don't freak out over the first meeting with the teacher and you get something you're not expecting.
Yeah. And especially like teenagers. I mean, come on, we were all teenagers. Just remember what it was like for you, you know? And there are a lot of parents that are fantastic and they're great and they're your ally, but for the rest of you, it's like you just have to remember what you were like back then.
You're lucky to have my kids in your class.
It's like, and some of them are like, you know, they get to break free from their parents because they might have overbearing parents, and then this is schools where they can let loose, and they might not make the best choices, but you know, and as teachers, it takes a little while to figure that out sometimes.
Sure.
For me, it was like the schedule. Like I remember seeing like the schedules of like, oh, my daughter's going to kindergarten, and like I would think it's silly that like, you know, it's like from like 8:05 to 8:57 they have like this, and then like there's a 3-minute break, and then like at 9 to like 9:14 or something. There's like and like it was just by the minute, and I may be exaggerating a little bit, but everything was like there was no room for anything. Everything was scheduled out. And I always thought that like, that's kind of funny, right? And well, when they came home, oh my gosh, like I am not kidding you at all. I had paper on the wall of like every minute of the day. And I was like, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
You know, because you get carried away. Like you may get into it with the student and like you might want to take more time on this, but like you gotta hit art, you gotta go to the specials class, like you know what I mean?
I love that.
So yeah, like, you learn different things. So I love that that's in your pitch because it's highly relatable, you know, because like unfortunately when you talk about, and I don't know if this is something you run into, but when you talk about that issue of teachers needing that that kind of coaching, really the only people that understand that are teachers.
Exactly.
And like, you know, parents need to understand that the importance of, you know, your teachers. And so your pitch is awesome in delivering that. Yeah.
I appreciate
Highly recommend y'all going to look at her pitch from last
Everybody's
night.
pitches were amazing. So
oh my gosh. I know.
It was great. All of them were great, but yours had people like laughing and clapping and like, woo, like,
I had to. I'm like, and that's what I taught my students. So I'm like, you know, I got to go for it because that's what I tell them to do. So
how was it during the pre-accelerator? Because you've done some tough things. You've gone through some programs before. How was the pre-accelerator for you?
It was a lot. I did love the feedback. Of course, the negative feedback is always hard to take, but being in theater, like I'm used to, directors like just tearing you apart. But what made it difficult was I think all of us have full-time jobs still, and then we're doing our companies full-time, and then learning is a full-time, what you put into it, you get out of it. But the community that, I keep saying it takes a village. And I was like, here's my village for this.
Yeah.
So I knew if I fell a little bit, there was somebody I could go to if I couldn't find it within myself. And I'm lucky because I'm sweet mates with Stack IQ. And sometimes I just had to open the little door and I was like, Gabe, Taylor, and then,
Yeah.
So,
And they're so great.
oh my God.
Especially for that moment.
Oh,
They're,
for sure.
They're so great for that.
Well, and then Gabe was not having the best day. And I had teachers have a hard time saying no. And I had my principal, Dr. Akala, told me I had to learn how to say no. So I found this wonderful card when I went to Scottsdale, Arizona, and I cut it, I put it in a frame and I put it on my desk. And it's from Thelma and Louise. And I'm not going to curse, but it says, if it's not a hell yeah, it's an F no. And I was like, I'm listening to Gabe. And I was like, I think he needs it. So I brought it for him. And now he has it up in his thing. Cause I'm like, it's okay to say, but it took me a long time to learn that. So it's like, that stuff only happened within this pre-accelerator because only we knew what each other was going through. So it was like boot camp all over again.
Yeah.
So
man, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you enjoyed the process. And had I known that you were a tough teacher and make students cry, maybe I would have been tougher in the mentor sessions.
Yes. I gotta bring it on, but no.
Did anybody make you cry?
No. At one point, I began the doubt started creeping in.
Oh yeah.
And then that's when I was like, okay, I already have my tool bag. I know what I need to do when that creeps in. Because it happened like when I was creating UX, like, oh my God, I was crying. I was stressed out. I went to the hospital. It was so bad. And I was like, now I know I don't want to get to that point again.
Yeah.
So I knew what I had to do. So.
Yeah. That's so real. I'm so glad that you brought that up because we've talked about that with other folks that come on the podcast, that mental health is so important.
Oh,
and
yeah.
a lot of those skills that you had developed being a teacher and, blazing your own trail do translate into entrepreneur, when you're an entrepreneur.
Definitely.
Wow. Well, that's good that you were aware of that and you're able to cope with it in the way that works for you.
Oh, yeah. And then you all, I don't know if you realize like what you're doing, it's teaching. So like, I know Leslie would send, after the session to do the feedback. Yeah. And that's what teachers, they want feedback all the time. So I was like, okay, I have a way to debrief.
Yeah.
And not just be like, okay, this happened to me. I'm all alone in my own little bubble.
Yeah.
It was just a well thought out program.
Shout out Leslie.
Shout out Leslie.
For sure.
Everybody was amazing here.
Yeah.
So, but
I know she just killed it. Like I was so proud last night to see all that demo day.
Oh my gosh, yes.
My face hurt. Because I was smiling the whole time.
Same here. I was so excited. I didn't want to leave. I was here till like after 10 last night.
Evening. And I was like, oh man.
I mean, I was stressing a little bit. Like there was like a huge gust of wind and I saw clouds and I was like, if it starts raining right now and the screen was like glitching, I was like, oh.
Our new flags that we got, they're like
they're falling.
Well, and then seeing John and Leslie in between all the pitches, that was hilarious. That was the best part.
Yeah, I know. They're great.
We try.
Honestly, though, we have a dream team. Yeah. Like everybody here really puts in the work, and but I think you're right. It takes a village. We have our own. This is our community, and everybody lifts each other up. So, well, thank you so much for this. I do have one more question for you. We've talked about your high highs and some low lows. And if you could give yourself some advice back in one of your lower points, what advice do you wish you would have received or wish you could have given yourself?
Oh, wow. I would say love yourself and give yourself grace.
Love yourself and give yourself grace.
Yes.
That is awesome. Yeah.
That's what I learned the hard way, but I learned that.
Yeah, because it's easy, especially if you have that. It's easy to fall into that trap of like, especially the imposter syndrome. And when that doubt creeps in, you got to love yourself. And or when you were applying for your job and and fake it till you make it and tell them Adobe Illustrator.
Yeah.
I'm a master.
Yeah, I totally watched a YouTube video on it. I'm good.
Wait, we didn't have YouTube. That was just when MySpace was still there. So.
Oh man,
watch the MySpace video. Yeah, dang.
Oh my goodness,
it's a throwback.
Wow.
Yeah, but I learned the hard way. But it's like life is good.
Yeah,
I love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. This was so much fun.
I had a blast.
You know, I feel like I knew you pretty well, but I got to know so much more about you.
Yeah,
today.
thank you for sharing. Like, I feel like, open book. Like, I've learned so much about you. Like, already respected you a whole bunch, but even more now. Like, it's so cool to hear that you got the awards and the accolades that you deserve. So you're a legend.
A legend in the flesh, in the space,
in underground.
Underground.
I love it.
So with all that, Mr. JRG, take us home.
We're going to take it home real quick before I start the exiting music. How do people get a hold of you? How do they find out more about BMyVillage? Is there like a mailing list?
Sure. So they can go to LinkedIn, BMyVillage, or contact me directly at Belinda@BMyVillage.com.
I love it. And that's the website, BMyVillage.com.
Yep.
Go B without the E.
Yes.
BMyVillage.com.
Find her on the 7th floor.
7th floor in the
Stack
office.
IQ, that's right.
Stack IQ. I love it. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. This was a super fun episode. Tune in next week. We'll have another great guest, another pre-accelerator company. Hey. So tune in and keep an eye on social at Geekdom SA to find out who's next. And we'll see you next week. Y'all have a good rest of your day, everybody.